a song for you.
You're listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I will do one episode for each song the band recorded in the studio. However, this is a fan podcast and not band endorsed. It's more of a tribute to their long history, well beyond just the hits, and my way of giving something back to a band that has given so much to me. Let's dig in! Hello and welcome to another episode of Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and this is season 27, episode number 8, covering the song Guilt Trippin'. And I am very excited to get into the band's third and so far final single release. There is going to be, I believe, on July 17th. When does this? Oh, this actually airs on the 17th. Perfect. Well, today, I believe, is the official release for the Guilt Trippin' single. I don't think that they planned that around the day that this podcast would hit, but that's the way it is. If you are lucky enough to grab a copy of that, I believe there are only going to be 3,000 if what I saw was correct. However, if you live in the States, be prepared to pay a huge amount for shipping. That is why I didn't order it, which is really unfortunate. There is an American distributor where the shipping is much lower, but the price is higher. So it still was not favorable, which is really interesting. I get that bands are not making their living on tour. A lot of them are, even album sales are, you're not making a huge amount of money on album sales anymore. So it really comes down to merch. So physical copies versus digital download is always helpful. I did both. It's tough out there. I mean, I want to do more and support them and support other bands that I love, but boy, you really have to look at shipping as part of what you're paying. So be wary, but support if you can. That's what I would say. Maybe at one point I'll be able to get a copy of that. There will be, like I said, there's usually, I think they usually do 2,000. For some reason, they're doing 3,000. Maybe it was just a better price point. Maybe they're like, you know what, we always sell out of these. Let's do more and see how far we can push it. I have no idea. I don't see any of those numbers. I'm not privy to their marketing, but I do find that a bit interesting. Anyway, we're going to get into this. This is Guilt Trippin' by Deep Purple. Wow, this is beautiful. I don't remember this, but I have to say I really like it. In fact, it's interesting that to me, I'm hearing my friends in the band Mythos from Canada. This is something that they might have started out with in one of their songs, and then you get this really cool beat to it, and they just come in with like different instruments and changing parts, and it's got good energy to it. Because they would start with something like this and then just put like a warmer, faster beat than you would expect. And you would think that this is going to be like a melancholy, more dramatic song, but they would just find some way to push the beat, add in a little bit of percussion, some beautiful pads and things, and really make a warm, inviting song of it. Maybe a little bit of female vocal in the background, which would be not surprising for them. Check them out. They're such a great band. Mythos. They are I think when I interviewed them for the Haskincast podcast, we talked a little bit about it. And I think I've talked to Bob Deeth a little bit more because he's got his product or his project Nixotic that he's releasing songs on. Is released 5 so far, and they've all been really good. But labeling, like trying to find a style, and you think of a band like Deep Purple, who's known as hard rock. Some people know them as heavy metal. Some people say they're progressive, but you don't really label them based on a part or maybe one song on an album that's a little bit different. So they do cross genres a little bit, I would say. I think a lot of bands do. Just recorded the 600th episode of the Haskincast podcast, and Corey Morissette and I covered the Georgia Satellites' first album, The Georgia Satellites. And one of the things that we talked about on the show is how much it crosses different genres. It's a little bit rhythm and blues. It's a little bit country. It's rock and roll. It's a lot of things. And I think it's tough to pigeonhole a band that has this much creativity and versatility. I mean, if you heard only one song off of Fireball and that song was Anyone's Daughter, you'd have the complete wrong impression of the band. They aren't known as like a country and western band. But if that's the song that you heard and you're like, wow, I always thought they were metal. Boy, was I wrong. It's really interesting how labels and things work. But if I heard this, if this was my first introduction into Deep Purple, I would have no idea they were a hard rock band. But I have a feeling we're going to get there. There's a couple things that come to me right off the bat listening to this. The first one is Simon's guitar reminds me a little bit of the overture to Jesus Christ Superstar. When you hear, I want to say probably more the broadcast recording, maybe than the movie version, just as far as the tonality goes. But just that da 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 da. The way the guitar sounds on that is very similar to this. It's got a little bit of a raw edge to it. And I like that. That works really well with this. And then the way that Ian Pace is playing, it reminds me, of course, a little bit of Before Time Began, which is another song that I just absolutely loved. If you've listened to that episode, you heard me rave about what a great song it is. And I'm still waiting for Ian to finish his book. What was it? The Ultimate God? I can't remember what it was going to be called now, but that. Anyway, I haven't heard him talk about that in quite a while, so I don't know if he's still working on that or not, but that would be very interesting to hear what that's all about. But in any case, this is a great start to the song. It looks like we're going to take a completely different direction now with the lyrics, so let's see where it goes. Well, I had to wonder if maybe I played the wrong song and this is scribbling gibberish, but no, it's Guilt Trippin'. I'm sure there's a point to this. I don't know why the vocal sounds that way, but I didn't understand a damn thing he said. I do find it interesting. I mean, I've never actually even heard him use this style before. This is something really different. And it almost sounds a little bit more Ian Gillan band. But and maybe he did something like that through the band. I don't know their stuff as well. I know Glory Road very well, and then a couple of other songs here and there. But yeah, this is a really weird. There is a much higher vocal behind the lead vocal, and maybe it's the blend of the two that is making it a little bit difficult to hear. But yeah, I have no idea what he said. Interesting sound, though, listening to the voice as an instrument, and it completely distracted me from the music. I had no idea what even happened there. I'll find out in the next verse. Yeah, that was pretty nice, actually. I like that. Nice to hear Roger playing a little bit in the upper register, touching on it here and there. I like the guitar. The keyboard sound is really strong and somewhat dominant in the mix. When I was first listening off the media player, it was very loud. But listening back through the digital audio workstation, it sounded a little bit more balanced. Again, just a little too much hi-hat. But yeah, I like the vocal part there a little bit better. I don't mind that layering. It is a very powerful vocal, though, during that verse, isn't it? I mean, I'm understanding him a little bit better in this verse than I did the first one, but it's such a powerful delivery. And You got to love the passion, the talent, and just the effort that's put in. I mean, these guys don't have to do this if it's not what they want to do. And I love that they're like, you know what, this is what the song should be. So we're just going to make it be that. That's what we feel. Uh, that's what we're connecting, and that's what we're going to make happen. I love that. I think it's just too easy to rest on your laurels and say, let's just go make a nice little rock album, you know? No, they're still pushing boundaries. Damn, it's impressive. Really like, again, that part that comes after, I guess that would be the chorus. I don't know it well enough to realize whether that's a bridge or a chorus just yet. I'll get there. Don't worry about me. But I like that. I like that vocal blend. It feels really good. I like the change in the feel of it too. You know, the music, like the verse is really powerful. Then you go into the next section and it's just got a little bit of a mellow overtone to it, which is very contradicting of the last verse. I like that though. I think it's a great 1-2 punch. Okay, I'm just going to stop here because that's a lot of stuff. I forgot to mention that this is actually the longest song on the album at 4 minutes and 52 seconds. And I find that interesting that that's one that they would release as a single. But it's not like we're in the days of radio play where, you know, if your song was 2.5 to 3 minutes, somewhere in that range, you had a pretty good shot of getting on the radio. If it was too much longer, they just wouldn't play it because they couldn't get enough songs in unless people were requesting it. So I do find it interesting that that's a single, but I have to change with the times and say that that doesn't really matter as much. But it is the longest song on the album by quite a stretch. And I like this part here. I like the way that Ian Pace goes to the toms for the second half of it. That's actually really nice. I like the way they come out of it. It kind of reminds me, I don't remember what the other song was. I'm pretty sure it was a Deep Purple song where I had said it reminded me of Joe Satriani's War. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was an episode of the Haskincast podcast. I've done so many shows now. I honestly can't remember, but there was a song that reminded me of that. This little part does as well. Just a little bit of the main riff I sense in there, but this is really nice. It goes, you know, from your really insane verse to what's probably the chorus, and it has a more mellow overtone. Then they just explode into this. Very, very well done. It's so seamless, so comfortable. It doesn't feel so abrupt that you're like, wait, what just happened? Like it's just like a natural progression. It feels like this is the way the song should go, and I really like that. Little repetitive, which is kind of surprising to me. I mean, it sounded good. I really love it. Like I could just listen to that for a while. As a listener, definitely not complaining. Just surprised a little bit on the writing or the producing side that they didn't do something different, either change what was being played or build it up a little bit more. Did hear some nice notes from Roger creep through that. He's really sticking to the low end from what I can hear on this album. Maybe I'm missing something in this in the mix, but it does seem like his playing is a little bit more on the low end register. But that makes notes like this that you hear kind of creep through a little bit more special. So just depends on how you look at it. Nothing wrong with it one way or another. But yeah, a lot of little background sounds from Ian Gillan, which was nice. I forgot to mention in that last chorus, he actually was doing some really nice background vocals in there that were kind of similar to this, a little bit passionate, feeling a little bit disconnected, which I think really works for the song, actually, especially coming out of that verse. So definitely enjoyable. I like the piano, which I don't normally. I mean, I'm just not a big fan of piano these days, unless I'm listening to like Beethoven, where I'm just so used to it being piano, I don't really think about it. But I really like what Don was playing there. I thought it complemented Simon's part very, very well and made it feel a little bit, a little otherworldly. And I don't mean that in like a paranormal way, but just like I'm in a different world with where it's just like really nice, and I can just relax and enjoy it, you know? Really nice stuff. Yeah, I'm really digging the song. Just the verses are a little bit to get used to, but I'm sure I will eventually. Wow. Just wow. Some great performances from Don and Simon on there. And then you've got Ian Pace and Roger helping with the transitions. And that's really nice. But that second part from Don might be some of my favorite stuff I've heard him play. I just, it's just so interesting and different and unexpected. And Simon solos were great. And then the way that you get back into the main riff at the end of Simon's solo there, fantastic. Only thing is, I do feel again the mix is a little bit unbalanced. I feel like Don is a little bit quieter than what we get from Simon, so it does feel a little bit imbalanced. I think that the guitars are coming in louder than the piano is, so it kind of throws off the song a little bit to me just because I have to strain a little more to hear Don, and then Simon comes in and he's louder, and that's very, very upfront in the mix, and it's fine. I can hear everything very clearly. Then I have to strain a little bit to hear Don again. Now, Don is playing some higher frequencies. He's also hard striking the piano a lot. So it is a little bit much, and it could be an issue where they had to kind of push it back down. It also could be a just a limiter issue where the piano was pushed down a little bit more in the mix than the guitar. At the end of the day, the final product feels imbalanced to me because of that. But I would say both of them, excellent performances. Really love the solo work that we're getting on this album. This feels like a little more kind of what you'd expect, this back and forth trade-off between keys and guitar, which I think we've all come to appreciate in many, many songs over the course of this amazing Deep Purple catalog. It's a very abrupt false ending. And what I mean by that is basically that you get the band stopping and you think the song's going to be over, but then Don continues on going back to that opening riff from the piano. And this is what I would consider the first fade on the album. It took us 8 tracks to get there, but it does fade out. I want to know what Don played after this. I hope that, on one of these deluxe bonus disc editions that they'll put out at some point, we get to hear what Don played after they faded it. It might not be anything. He might have just stopped right there. I don't know. But I do like where that was going, and that's kind of what I wanted earlier. We did get a little bit of an escalation of that one riff after the back and forth solos, and maybe that's why they didn't do it earlier. Why that part felt a little repetitive to me previously, because they were saving the change for later on. And that's not uncommon, but that did feel a little repetitive the first time. Overall, I really dig this song. I think it's just going to take me a while to get used to the vocals during the verse. Everything else, very nice. I'll get past the imbalance of it. It'll become just the way that it sounds. And remember, I'm doing a critical review as opposed to just a casual listen. So I'm really pointed out to hear the nuances in the song and hear the different things in the mix and the performances and really pay attention to that. Where when I'm just casually listening, I'm just taking kind of everything in as one thing. So I will, as a casual listener, I will enjoy these perfectly fine. As a critical listener, it's a little bit different of an experience. And there's a lot of great to say about this song. I really like it. And I interestingly, I seem to remember being like the first couple songs were cool. And as we've gone, I'm like, okay, this one really gets me. Okay, I really like this one. And I haven't gone back and listened to the initial songs again. I want to wait until I'm done recording all the episodes and just kind of like retaken the album on the whole again and see how I feel. But I do feel like I've liked the album better and better as I've gone through these different songs on the podcast. So I'll be curious to see how I feel about it on the whole. And then when I return mid-August-ish to, kind of unleash my more experienced ear review, because I'll have gotten used to these songs by then, and I'll definitely have more thoughts and opinions based on, what that listening experience becomes. I have a feeling it's going to be very positive. Sometimes it's interesting too, and maybe this is why I do kind of back off on bands when I'm like, okay, you have two songs that I know and I absolutely love them. I don't want to know anymore, because I do think that there's well, what if I just what if the rest take me too long to get used to? I'm like, well, the band isn't really what I thought they were. They're not what I, had wanted them to be or whatever. Like those two songs were just different and they happened to be the ones I heard and I connected to them very well. Maybe that is a part of why I do that with bands like Zebra, where I absolutely adored two of their songs. And then I'm like, I don't need to hear anything else these guys ever do. And I didn't make that conscious decision, but if you hear two singles and you love those two songs, why would you not want to check out the album? Right? I mean, doesn't that just seem like a reasonable thing to do? But nay, I did not do that. I finally did. I finally went back and reviewed their first album on the Haskin Cast podcast and really, really dug it. But I do find it weird sometimes you hear an album, even from a band that you love, and I don't know if it's expectation, because I think the only expectation that I have going into a new Deep Purple album is that I've enjoyed every album that these guys have put out, regardless of whether it was a top album for me or an album like Slaves and Masters, which I do feel like I picked apart pretty well because I feel like there was a lot to pick apart for my own personal taste. But even that album I enjoyed. I've listened to it tons of times, and that's probably my least favorite album from them. But that's okay. I still enjoy it. So I walk into it thinking I'm going to enjoy this album, but that doesn't mean that all the songs are just going to strike me right off the bat. Sometimes it'll take a few listens. Equals One I liked right off the bat, but I didn't get to know the songs for quite a while. And I still don't know a lot of them by name, but as soon as they start, I'm like, okay, I know which song this is. And again, like I talked about, I think it was in the last episode where I just talked about the listening experience, the fact that I don't get to sit down for 38 minutes or 45 minutes and just listen to an album and look at the album cover and get to know everything about that album. So it is a different experience on top of that. I don't feel as connected. I'll enjoy the music, but it is a different experience. And maybe that is also part of why people are like, well, the band's not who they used to be, or they don't sound like they used to, or I don't like them as much as I used to. Well, maybe the experience has changed too. I think that's very plausible. And I've even heard the band say it. When everything switched to CD, they're like, this sucks. Everybody said this sucks from a perspective of, I can't read the font in these booklets. Everything is way too tiny. I don't get to enjoy my 12-inch cover art anymore. It's all, I have to get a magnifying glass, and that's just not an enjoyable reading experience. Some of them you might as well put under a microscope. And I think that's all part of it. So when I hear people say, I don't like them as much as I used to, or they're not the same as they used to be, yes, music has changed. Bands change. They grow. If you expect every band to be who they are on their first album, then they are not growing as a band, because they are going to do things differently from album to album. If they don't, I would worry about them. unless it's something incredibly specific. Like take a band like SOD, right? Born from Anthrax, and they are very specifically short songs, thrash, political statement, or just a statement on society type thing. I would not expect that they would change very much from album to album. I think they have a certain way about them, and that's it. But when you're talking about a more generalized style like rock and roll, for example, I think you have a lot of room. You've got the ability to cross over into heavy metal or even pop a little bit, or even like this one, like you're doing a piano intro, which could be looked at as classical, or it could be looked at as potentially new age. And so you start to realize, though, that yes, the band has changed. The band's going to evolve. They're not going to sound the same from song to song, let alone album to album. So you have to take each album as it comes and say, okay, this is what they're giving us this time. Take each song. Do I like this song? Yes or no? Is it a song that'll eventually grow on me? Maybe. But I think when you put the whole thing together, the listening experience has changed dramatically. And also, if you're listening on your phone and say, like, you're out walking around, like when I go to take my walks, I listen to podcasts a lot because the traffic is usually too loud for me to appreciate the music, but I can hear the dialogue because that cuts through. It's not blending in with anything. So podcasts are a little easier to listen to when there's noise around you. But even if, let's say you're just listening to music, you are not 100% just dedicated to listening to that music. Why? Because you're out in the world and you need to be aware. You need to be safe. You need to know what's going on around you. You need to know the weather, where the cars are people around. Is there, something that looks precarious in your path? I mean, there's so much that you're focused on that you really don't get that deep listening experience like we used to when we just sat on the bed, had the headphones on, had the album in our hands, and we just listened to the music and read the liner notes over and over and over and perused every little tidbit on that drawing for the album cover, the picture or painting or whatever it was. It really has changed. So aside from that, then you've got, the people that are like, well, I miss the old band and it's not the same without Rich and everything. Yeah, it isn't. But that's okay. If you give everything that's new a chance, you may just find you like it. If you decide you're not going to like it because you don't want to know about Deep Purple without Richie Blackmore, or you can't imagine, maybe there's people that are even like, I don't want this band without Steve Morrison, and he's my guy. I mean, I suppose that's all valid, but I just feel like a lot of people are cheating themselves out of things that they don't necessarily need to. But if you're not going to be open-minded, you've decidedly had a bad experience of your own free will. And it's a shame because maybe you'll like it. So while my initial reaction to the album was, yeah, I like it, it's good. And it takes a couple listens for some of the songs to grow on me, just because nothing really just gripped me right off the bat. But as I'm listening to these songs, this is my third time through, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm really digging this. So hopefully you guys are. If you didn't like it the first couple times you heard it, maybe wait a little while and give it another spin. I just feel like if you like this genre of music, this is definitely worth listening to. And I just want everybody to go into it with an open mind, give it a chance and see, because they are the band that they are right now. And go see them on tour. I'm looking forward to it. 2 more months and I will have seen them again in my favorite city in the world. You guys have a wonderful day. We will see you in the next episode. This is Friday. So have a great weekend and we'll see you on Monday. Cheers. Thanks for listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast, a tour of the entire Deep Purple studio recordings. Please remember to give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Leave a comment and tell your friends. I also have a Patreon set up if you'd like to support the show. You can also write to me at smokeonthepodcast@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode and thanks for listening.